Final Fantasy Type-0 is a spin-off of the series for the PSP, but personally I think it's the closest one to be part of the mainline games, sharing many aspects that make it a full-fledged game. One of those aspects that I always love to check and highlight in this video are the references to the previous games in the series. While not being a reference, the premise of the game already involves the existence of 4 elemental or at the very least colorful crystals, just like how the series started and is often associated with. Of course, the circumstances are all different, but the tradition remains. The proper first topic will be weapons you obtain in the game that are referencing a specific previous one. Finishing the XIII version in finished difficulty, the hardest one possible, will reward you a lance. The Lancer 9 will be able to buy now Cain's Lance, one of the strongest spears in the game. Alluding of course to Cain from Final Fantasy IV, the dragoon of the game who is often referenced. Cain could be the quintessential dragoon of the series for his looks and poses, even if not the first one. Besides the normal missions to accomplish, a set of special orders could be done during it as optional objectives. These can be generic at times, but during the mission Operation MA Demolition, when reaching the boss battle at the end, the special order Destroy Bryonak as quickly as possible using your active leader will trigger. Fulfilling this order will unlock a new Eidolon to use, the summons of this game. In this game, summons are part of 6 different categories. The Ifrit class will have 5 beasts that visually resembles Ifrit but have different stats and names. The one that we unlock here is an Ifrit class and is called Rubicante. Rubicante, while not a summon, is the fire elemental that belongs to the 4 heavenly kings in Final Fantasy IV. One of the 4 fiends of Golbez, probably the strongest one and most recognizable. You first meet him as he defeats the party member Edge, and later everyone joins forces to have revenge on him, who despite being an enemy shows an honorable side. And the last one for Final Fantasy IV is a small one. In the section of the game that serves to read the lore of the world, there's an entry about the air fleet of our home. Here, they refer to these airships as the Crimson Wings, which is a callback to the main fleet that led Cecil, the protagonist of Final Fantasy IV, being the commander of the Red Wings at the start of the game. Moving to Final Fantasy V, one of these types of the previously mentioned Eidolons is the Golem class, specialized in high defense but low speed. While Golem is a recurring entity in the series, it's not often depicted as a playable summon, unlike maybe Titan, which is similar. It's often shown as an enemy instead. It was in Final Fantasy V where it appeared to be summoned, and also had the effect to raise the party defenses up to a certain damage limit when doing so. During the game, there will be a conflict with the Shoryu country, a land known for its assured dragons, and her strongest warrior is the Lucy called Celestia. When it's time for a final showdown against her, she will transform into her draconic form, called Shinryu Celestia. Shinryu is not only an enemy, but a super boss that originated in Final Fantasy V, the strongest optional boss fight in the game, having a big reputation in the series since. Celestia is not only a reference to this classic boss in name and dragon-like aesthetic, but also in how imposing she can be. Simply by looking at this arena during her boss battle, you can see her presence is very strong. Not only that, but on a normal playthrough, it's common to be defeated by her in the battle, and it's not until another reference that will be shown later appears to save the day. One of the next missions that follow this clash with Shoryu is on the other side of the battlefield called the Clash on the Big Bridge. And with that name alone, you might know already what it's referencing. First of all, it's good to know that the mission actually takes place on a big bridge, so probably it's a simply fun name callback to the moment and song in Final Fantasy V, The thing is that when retreating back, you are interrupted by a strong and amnesiac man called Gilgamesh. Battle on the Big Bridge is of course his musical theme because of the events that originated in FF5. So here it's not simply the name used, but the man himself made an appearance and it won't be the last one, as there's multiple boss fights against him, including a secret superboss one where he transforms. In a similar way, with how there are multiple boss fights and transformations in his first appearance in FF5. Of course, Gilgamesh is now a staple of most games, but it's cute that the Big Bridge was also included in this case. When thinking of the allusions to Final Fantasy VI in this game, there is a clear overall inspiration first, which is the use and design of Magitech armor. The big empire of this world that is called VIII specializes in machinery and has a strong inspiration in the empire of FF6, even using the term Magitech for its weapons. Also the leader is called XIII, but that was to be expected. There is even one specific moment where while infiltrating inside of one of these machines, you walk past the snowy fields to arrive to your next destination. This is very reminiscent of the iconic opening of FF6, where a mind-controlled Terra walked along the snowy fields to reach Narsh on board her Magitech armor, along Biggs and Wedge. Other than that, there are a couple of weapons to highlight. One of the main characters in this game is Ace, who uses magic cards to fight, which is pretty cool. The starter gear is simply called cards, but is able to obtain others, like for example, after defeating 700 enemies, he is rewarded with Reaper's Tarot. Or after defeating one of the secret boss fights in the game, the mentioned True Gilgamesh, he will be rewarded his ultimate weapon called Black Trump. All of these mentioned are weapons that belong to one of the very few Final Fantasy characters that is able to use cards as weapons, the gambler Setzer Gaviani. His starter weapon will be simply called cards like Ace, and translation naming convention aside, he also is able to use Reaper or Death Tarot and Final Trump. But there's something cooler. After completing some expert trials, optional high-level missions that usually allow you to liberate or conquer cities that are under the Empire control, you can visit these places and find new side quests. One of them asks you to visit this mysterious place called the Silent Key. In the overworld, this is a cave, but it has a weird structure along it. Inside, you see that it's fancier than it looks, and while exploring the place, you start to activate it. At the end of this, you reach the final room, and at the panel there's something engraved that says, "With hope in my heart and my chin held high, I await the day my ship shall once more rule the sky." Signed by Captain Setzer. Immediately after, this place activates as it was an airship all along, allowing us to fly freely through Orience. Of course, if it wasn't clear enough, the name Setzer repeats here, and the reason for it is because in Final Fantasy VI he wasn't only the gambler, but also the one in charge of both airships in the game, and heavily linked to them during his personal story and arc. So it is meant to be, and pretty cool to see. The last allusions are less about the weapons and this time about some abilities that you can unlock. The character Trey, the archer, has one of its strongest abilities called Grand Delta, generating a portal that drains more of enemies' HP and inflicting a kill site status. This name is the same as the ultimate blue magic from Strago in Final Fantasy VI, a character that learns magic from enemies. And he learns this one from the boss fight Hidon, which is linked to his own personal story. The character Sing, who uses a comically big mace for her body, also has an ability that shares the name with Strago magic, called Payback in English, draining HP when the user's HP is low, but shares the original Japanese name to Strago's Revenge Blast, which is his starting ability, dealing damage in comparison to the HP he lost. While the last ability is from the character called 8, who is the monk of the group, so it's fitting that his ability called Phantom Rush where he automatically dodges the enemy attack, is based on Sabine Figaro's ultimate blitz attack of the same name. Only that Sabine version is more destructive and offensive, as it's his ultimate move. Moving to Final Fantasy VII, first we have a handful of weapons to be mentioned. Previously, we said that the character 9 uses lances, like a dragoon. If you do a set amount of kill sites, which is basically beating an enemy at a specific timing for an immediate kill, you'll get two good spears, the Venus Gospel and High Wind. Venus Gospel is the ultimate weapon for the Final Fantasy VII character called Cid, who is a very unconventional dragoon and airship pilot. And while High Wind is Cain's last name, I mention it here because it's also Cid's, and even has the airship called like that. So any of the many High Winds are valid. Then, this is a game where the party members are numerous, which is great, and it's also the second game after FF7 to include two different gunners among the ranks. So it's appropriate that both Cutter and King will have many weapons that share names with the ones that belong in 7. First of all, there are a couple of optional dungeons you can complete in this game, and the rewards are not fixed. Instead, there is a chance that different weapons or items are found in these chests. One example is the treasure at Bethnal Caverns, being able to have the weapon Missing Score for Cutter. Missing Score is Barrett's ultimate weapon in FF7, and perfectly named like that because it's actually a permanently missed item if you don't collect it with him when revisiting Midgar, as is the case with me here. The next one is a more surprising one. On the second playthrough, you are given the option at times to deviate from the main mission for an alternative path that is called Cold Crimson. During the main mission of Chapter 3, you can choose to locate another base, and completing it on finished difficulty, which is the hardest, will give you at the end the reward Marvelous Shout, a gun for Cutter. The original name for this gun in Japanese is called Marvelous Cheer, which is the same as Sketchy ultimate weapon in FF7, but known in English as HP Shout, obtained at Shinra HQ at the end of the game. Not exactly a gun-related character, but still an ultimate weapon callback nonetheless. A character that is clearly gun-related is Vincent Valentine, so he'll have a ton. After completing some expert trials that conquer the city of Setme on the Empire territory, there is an access to the shop of this city, where you can buy the Riot Gun for Cutter, which is a Vincent weapon originally, also known as Lariat in English. And I guess a couple of guns called Hard Edge, which can be related to Cloud's sword, that appear in some promotional pictures and the remake, but that's less fitting. Instead, the other gunner of the game, King, who uses dual guns to fight, is going to have most of Vincent's callbacks in his arsenal. The rewards for him after getting 300 and 700 kills and 300 kill sites are the guns called Outsider, Death Penalty and Peacemaker. While one of the treasures that you can find at the Bethnal Caverns are the weapons Super Shot ST, and the reward for the previously mentioned True Gilgamesh boss fight is his ultimate weapon, the Quicksilver. All of these are guns that belong originally to Vincent. While Quicksilver is his starting gun instead, the others are able to get through the journey, and Death Penalty is his own ultimate weapon, obtained at the Crystal Cave after visiting Lucretia here. Vincent and his gunner playstyle, by the way, is one of the things I look forward to the most in the third part of the remake trilogy. In terms of abilities, there's one for the samurai of the class called Chuck that shares an ability with the ninja of FF7. His ability Tranquility allows him to read the enemy attack and counter-slash, while in Final Fantasy VII, one of Yuffie's limit breaks shares the same Japanese name, Clear Tranquil, as she heals all party members by half of their maximum HP. Speaking of Yuffie, in the previously mentioned airship fleet called the Crimson Wings, they mentioned that one of the elite classes is known as the Kisaragi class, which is Yuffie's last name, so there's that cute detail there too for her.
Cool.
Previously, while talking about Celestia Shinryu, I mentioned that the only way to win this fight in normal circumstances is with the help of another powerful reference. This is because Dr. Aresia, seeing us struggling in this fight, decides to help us by summoning her own eidolon. Bahamut Zero, the only being able to go head to head with Shinryu. Bahamut is, of course, the most famous summon in the Final Fantasy series, to the point of having multiple versions and forms. One of them is exclusive to Final Fantasy VII, and it was precisely Bahamut Zero, making an appearance there for the first and only time until now. It's probably the strongest summon behind the Knights of the Round, which are a cheat code, casting Terra Flare as its attack from space. One enemy that actually didn't make it into the game, but would have been pretty cool, is one of my favorite random encounters in the entire series that belongs to FF7. There is concept art to bring back the enemy Yin and Yang, a zombie-like creature with two heads, one focusing on physical abilities and the other in magic, and moves in a very creepy way. While it's a shame that didn't make it into the actual game, it did appear in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it looks as beautiful as I remember him. The boss fight that caught my eye the most was certainly the one during Chapter 4. As we escape from the Empire capital, being accused of killing the Concordia Queen, a big machine weapon pursues us during the latest part of the mission. This being a giant scorpion-looking robot, in all its silver glory. The design alone is inspired by the very first boss fight in Final Fantasy VII, where Cloud and Barret fight the guard scorpion, that looks red-colored instead. But it also shares its abilities and movement, as it often moves with high agility towards the walls to throw a barrage of missiles towards us. Or at the very least, these are attributes shared with the remake version of this fight, as it clearly has more movements than the original one and its deceiving tail. Speaking of Final Fantasy VII Remake, there is a nice response to be found in the game instead. During this section in Type-0, you reach a room that has the walls covered in claw marks, which we see were caused by a big and feral behemoth that you have to fight. Behemoths are common in most Final Fantasy games, but during the remake, if you complete an optional missions that involve fighting this dangerous beast, you'll see that not only his particular design is mostly the same, but the official name it has in-game is Behemoth Type-0, so it's a nice callback. Among the eidolons of Type-0, there are some secret ones that you can't get in a normal playthrough. For example, while completing the optional expert trial Operation Dragon Slayer in Chapter 7, the reward for it will be a new summon type, the Diabolos Eidolon. This summon, while looking amazing with its very demon-looking features, hasn't been around since its first appearance in Final Fantasy VIII. FF8 had some unique summons or guardian forces, like Cerberus or the Doom Train, and Diabolos, or Diablos, was one of the most popular ones, as it's also a boss fight. Its dark ability means that the elemental powers associated with him are the gravity-based attacks, which in Final Fantasy means that they deal a percentage damage to the max HP of the foe, instead of calculating it normally with attack and defense stats. It's slightly surprising that Diabolos hasn't returned as a normal summon more often, but it makes this appearance better that way. Another reference you could make to Final Fantasy VIII in this game is more of a general concept or setting that is similar rather than a specific thing. Because most of the main characters in Type-0, minus Machina and Rem, are the students of Academia, specifically Class 0, who are trained exclusively to be cadets to fight in this war, and have some memory loss condition. While in FF8, most of the main characters, minus Rinoa, are the students of the different Garden Institutes, specifically Balam Garden, who are trained exclusively to be SEED members to fight the sorcerer, and have some memory loss condition. Not only that, but the students of Class 0 have all a mother figure in Dr. Aresia, who is mysteriously a powerful magic user, while the students of the gardens shared all a mother figure in their matron at an orphanage, who mysteriously ended up being revealed as Edea Kramer, a powerful sorcerer. So that's a fun comparison to make. A side quest at the town of Akvi involves you talking to a little girl that, as her friends ran around and played at the square, she is waiting at the meeting spot that her sister promised to reunite at, waiting for her. After doing a sequence of dialogue, you find an NPC at the entrance of the town asking for this girl called Nasuna, so you can deliver her a letter from her sister, gaining the item Letter to Nasna. The concept of delivering mail and the name Nasna are a combination taken from Final Fantasy IX and the Mognet feature, where you can talk to the many Muggles that save your game that will ask you to deliver different letters around. One of these Muggles is called precisely Nasna, and you are able to deliver them a letter at the summit station at the start of Disc 2. I don't really think the content of each letter matches or is relevant, but the name and act sure are. We mentioned the Bethnal Caverns before. At the entrance of it, you first meet a girl called Akane, who is in a pinch because her boyfriend has turned into a frog, and ended up here somehow. After visiting 4 different dungeons with them in it, including the Valley of the Monsters, a place with level 95 Malboros, he finally will be saved and turn into a human again. If you visit the first cavern once again, you can talk to him and he'll say the following. His name alone was already suspicious, but along the dialogue he's directly referencing the Final Fantasy X recurring character Oaka the 23rd, who serves as the moving shop of the game, finding him conveniently in many places, most of them where he should not be, but useful for the player in need. Characters like these became somehow common later, like Chocolina in 13.2 or Chadley in Remake.
Thank you.
Finally, for Final Fantasy XIII, a game that shares the same myth as Type-0 and was released around the same years, we have 2 references that come from the rewards of fighting True Gilgamesh with some characters. True Gilgamesh is a boss fight that chooses only one of the class members to fight, so each has their own ultimate weapon as reward. In the case of VII, she'll get Brynhildr, or how I like to call it, Brynhildr. While not a weapon, this is the name of a summon in Final Fantasy XIII. It is Sash's Eidolon, a fire elemental knight who wields a bludgeon, shoots projectiles, and also turns into a car, which is pretty cool. Funny enough, this and Hecatoncheir might be the last new summons added in Final Fantasy, and they are already 17 years old.
That's right.
And the reward given to Sis is called the Tezcatlipoca. While not a scythe in Final Fantasy XIII, is one of the boomerangs you can upgrade that the party member Hope uses. A weapon that focuses on the strength power instead, which is a little bit counterintuitive as Hope is a magic focused character, but the option still remains. The rest of the references you could see about 13 has to do more with the fact that they share the same inspiration, the Fabula Nova Crystallis mythos. That's why there will be many similar concepts. The existence of Lucis that will turn into crystal one way or the other after completing the focus, for example. The overall theme of defying fate and creating a new one, where both Class 0 and Lightning's party are being used as sacrificial pawns by the gods, where another method is through sacrificing many lives, such as Tempus Finis and the Day of Ragnarok were. Or even how another deity such as Aresia representing Pulse, or the goddess Etro, freed from the crystal stasis to some of the characters. So again, more abstract stuff that is fun to think about rather than allusions. Or throwing moguls around. And these are not references, but I want to highlight the game feature that is Support Personal, where NPC players can help you mid-mission. The fun thing is that the name of this belongs to the staff that created the game, or even the voice actors and members of Pump of Chicken. So you might be fighting along the director Hajime Tabata or Tetsuya Nomura at some point, which is kinda funny. or having the spirit of Zeus helping you, named like her voice actress Hanazawa Kana, which are all pretty famous too. But finally, the last reference for this video to close things up, it has to be this one.
The Final Fantasy. That is Agito.
It's most unlikely.
Thank you very much for watching, enjoy some Final Fantasy, and I'll see you later.
All my years of
Love you.
research, all the magical